Hey guys, what is up? Inksmith back again, and today I'm talking about something that if you've ever been in a tabletop role playing game, you may have encountered yourself, and if you are a first time game master, then this is something you will eventually encounter, and something I gotta kind of warn some of the future game masters about, as well as maybe even other players around the table. These are the top five worst role players or playing characters or PCs or just people you sit around a table rolling dice with, playing tabletop role playing games with. Eventually, you will encounter these people, and you have a choice. As a game master, you can ask them to sort of correct their behavior or reel it in, or you can excommunicate them from the game in general if they're bad enough. And as a player, you can maybe, if the person's your friend, take them aside and be like, look, I know it's your first time playing, or maybe it's your first time playing with us as a group, but one thing that can kind of mess the game up is if you continue to do one of the following things. So I've written down a list right here. If you see me look down, it's because I've got the list right here in front of my face, starting with number one, the rules lawyer. The rules lawyer is the person who has every book already bought for the game that you are playing, and not only has them bought but brings all of them to the table. And when they encounter something that impedes the way that they personally want to play the game, they pull out one of those books and begin reading through it. And for this, there's a simple solution. You let your characters and players and everybody know right away you've got homebrew rules. Now, do you really have homebrew rules? Are you following everything to a T? Maybe you are. But as long as you just come across the table and say, look, no matter what you've got to come at me with, I'm doing my own homebrew rules. If you're not willing to start or play a game like that where I've kind of ironed out everything as far as how I want to play it, then don't play with this group. Give them a warning ahead of time. It's pretty simple to solve as far as that's concerned. If you do have a player who's adamant that they want to stick to the rules and they keep pushing them on you, just take them aside and nicely, not angrily or in a disappointed voice, let them know, that's cool, I'm really excited to see how much you've learned about this game, but as stated at the beginning of mine, I've created my own homebrew rules, so if things differ from what you're reading in the book, it's only because you're playing a customized version of that game. Now, with me personally, I have my whole role-playing world, so people know right away if they're coming in to play Sky Coffin, which is my role-playing game that I personally made up, my world. It's got its own rules, its own character sheets and everything. They know right away there's not going to be any rules lawyering because I literally made every rule in the game. I guess in a sense I am the rules lawyer, but that's because I'm the game master when I play my world. That person can be a rules lawyer. They can be like, look, what I say is final. What the game master does say is final. If you argue with them and you find yourself in a constant conflict, maybe it's just not the game for you, or maybe that game master's not the game master for you. That's okay. Find another game or another group to play with. Let's move on. The minmaxer. The minmaxer is someone who sees the game as merely a set of numbers and stats and rarely cares too much about the actual role-playing aspect. Now, don't get me wrong, everybody is allowed to max out what they think their character specializes in and get them to be the best they possibly can be at it. Hence, we play these games to try and work these characters up into a specialization or a special version of what they are as a character. If you have a bard, you want that bard to be best at his songs that give everybody motivation to fight harder. If you want to be a cleric, you want to be that cleric that can possibly heal every possible wound ever, bring people back from the dead, or maybe be an evil cleric that literally raises an army of the undead. You want to be the best you can be at that, and you want to max out your skills. There's nothing wrong with that. But to start the game off and have the game continuously be all about you finding the very best, taking the very best, even in a greedy sense. For example, someone finds a broadsword, they like it, they want to use it, but you decide, guys, listen, my fighter, he's got proficiency in broadswords. He's going to maximize the use of that. I'll be taking that, please. Thank you. No, you can't override other people's choices of what they do to make sure your character is perfectly maxed out with everything possible. Oh, you found a scroll of fireballs? I'm a wizard. You don't get to keep that. I take it because I'm going to be able to do the most with it. Hey, maybe for once the thief wants to use fireballs and read that scroll and suddenly have a different form of an attack just for one round of combat. Let them have it. You don't always have to max everything out that you find. And if you didn't find it yourself, or if maybe you don't get the exact weapon or the exact level up in some stat, don't try to force it. Just enjoy the gradual progression of your character and don't worry about all those crunchy numbers. It's okay sometimes. It's okay at the end of a sit down, a long rest, a party gathering up, maybe a shopping trip version of the role playing experience where you take a side mission and your guys gear up. That's a time to look for things to min max with because the GM, the game master, the dungeon master is literally giving you a play session to do that. That makes sense. But don't come at them being like, my character is a triple class, half minotaur, half barbarian, three armed proficient master, and three different weapons who can inflict 27d6 of damage and it's first level. Like, don't try to make an unreasonably overpowered character. Not every GM or DM is planning for such a min-maxer. Next up, we've got the Show Stealer. And God, the Show Stealer. This is actually one where I've done what's called Free RPG Day. It usually consists of people showing up to a comic book shop or a gaming shop and game masters or dungeon masters who want to get you interested in whatever genre or theme or type of role-playing game they usually host, do it for free and come there and let you play everything, give you out free character sheets, sometimes even give you free minis and free dice, which is kind of awesome. There's usually prizes to win, free starter guides to different role-playing games handed out, and it's to get people really excited about playing role-playing games. I think it's an awesome day to have for role-playing games, and this is where I've met the most show stealers. I feel like the people who do this have been saving up all their energy to try and show how much they've mastered the game, which I think it's great if you've gotten really in-depth on rules and learned every aspect possible, a lot of the lore and stuff. I am an absolute lore freak when it comes to a lot of role-playing games. I'm actually much bigger on lore than I am on any of the hardcore crunchy rules. But these type of people show up and they're ready to show off how much they've memorized and how much of a background they have in that game, which again, that can be beneficial. That can also become a show stealer. I played Star Trek, the role-playing game, the last time I went to one of these, and a guy showed up who right away let us all know he was going to be the captain of the ship. And I thought, yeah, sure, whatever. I wanted to be the medical officer, so I wasn't, fighting for this position. But this guy proceeded to ham-fist himself into every single situation that we encountered. It was a non-violent sort of scenario where you usually just had to use your wits to get through everything, which Star Trek tends to be in general. It's not known for non-stop, fisticuffs and lasers and swords. Those things do happen, but it's not the common theme of Star Trek. But he decided just to shout orders and, point to whatever we were about to do and say, tally ho, and Godspeed, and go forward. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I wanted to take things slow and just scan and find out medical solutions to stuff. I let everybody know in the group right away that one of the main aspects of my character was that he was non-violent. He refused any kind of combat. If there was some sort of scenario where we needed to enter into combat, I was just going to back off. And this captain just decided everybody was going to join no matter what, and could not understand people playing their own versions of what they wanted. Another guy was just a simple lieutenant. He was super shy. I felt so bad for him. I literally would sometimes ask the GM to pause for a second, ask this guy what he wanted to do, and then speak for him and say, This guy had a great idea over here. He wants to actually check out this tree to see what kind of animal is living inside of it, because this poor guy would just like look down at his paper and be like, and I'd be like, "Bud, what do you think? What is your ideas?" And he'd be like, I'd like to tell him. I'd like to look at that tree." And I'd be like, "All right, do you want to tell him?" And he's like, "No, no, no, no." And I'd be like, all right, we got you, we got you." I'd be like, "Sorry, can we pause just for a second? The lieutenant here, he had a good idea. Go ahead, say what you wanted to do." "I just wanted to look at the tree." The captain guy would shout over and be like, "No, we are going forward to attack whatever is hurting the entire fauna and flora of this place, and we're going to stomp it out." And I'd be like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 just relax. Can we just like let this guy try out what he wants to do for a second?" No matter what, this guy overtook everything. And the worst part about it is he wasn't even a great speaker. Like, even though he was role playing as this captain, he didn't come across as like someone you would be like, "Oh yes, this guy knows what he's doing." Like, if someone came forward and was absolute the best role player as a captain, like he gave an inspiring speech and you're like, "Oh man, well actually, you know what, I didn't think I was going to do that, but this guy is so convincing as a role playing captain, I'm gonna follow." His speeches would just be like, "No, they are bad, stupid people. Fight the trees, so we must kill whoever hurt tree in this area." Like, he wasn't articulate. He wasn't well spoken. He was just kind of like ham fisting himself, as I said, into every single situation to tell us exactly what his goal was, which doesn't really inspire you as a captain, in a fleet member following a captain. It was very awkward. I was glad when the session was over, and I was happy to move on to Cthulhu afterwards. Don't be that guy. Don't be the show stealer. Next up, I just had to deal with this actually. The murder hobo. The murder hobo is something you might encounter the first time you ever have your friends play a game that you made yourself or a scenario you created yourself. It is something you will most likely encounter with a lot of brand new role players who they're just so excited. They think, this is going to be like when I play Skyrim and I decide to do a speed run of the game or just see how I can screw the game up. They decide they're going to go in there and murder every single person you encounter. Young beggar on the street who's just a small boy who seems to have lost both legs in some horrible tragedy. Kill him, take his gold that he's already collected. Poor woman walking down the street with a crying babe in hand. Kill her, take whatever gold she has on her. And you're just like, what are you doing? Why would you? No one would act like this in real life. Even the most evil person ever wouldn't go around just randomly murdering people that have no motivation to move the game forward, to elevate their own life. You know, even the most disgustingly abhorrent evil characters in real life don't randomly murder people on the street simply to take a couple coins or a couple dollars. Maybe this happens with like very petty thieves in the underworld, but even they're kind of limited to how many times they can do this before they eventually get arrested, thrown in jail, and locked away forever. So you yourself wouldn't want to take these same chances. Now, when I have this kind of thing happen, and I did just recently with a younger group at my teaching job who I have in a pop culture club who play Dungeon Crawl Classic with me. They ran into a guy whose carriage had broken down and one of the wheels had fallen off and his horse had run away. And the other characters understood right away, like, okay, this guy's in trouble. We need to help him out. Let's, help him repair the wheel. Let's help him find his horse. But one of the guys there just decided, I'm going to kill him with my axe. And even after explaining, well, like, look, if you do that, all you're going to have is a dead guy with a broken cart. There's nothing in the cart that's wildly expensive or able to be turned in for a large amount of gold. Luckily, they failed their attack roll, and luckily I had another member in the party who made a saving throw to kind of wrestle their weapon out of their hand, and then struck them non-combatantly where they like knocked them out, put them over their shoulder. They made a couple success rolls in a while where my game was saved, and we were able to play out the rest of the game where he was like semi-conscious and unable to do anything because he could only attack pretty much with his fist and he wasn't trained in unarmed combat. But after that game finished, I did take that one player aside and be like, hey, look, I understand. Like, it's fun to mess around with everything in the setting. You want to just see what kind of reaction it gets out of the characters and stuff like that. But sometimes when I put characters into these story, they're meant to be there to move the story along. So if you just kill everything, that's something you are able to do, but you are also killing the story as you kill characters. So you've got to think about that for the other players. Maybe they want to learn about the story. Also, I mean, eventually, if you continue to do this, and you can, I'm not going to hold you back, but there are actually consequences, just like in real life. If you start running around murdering people, eventually, police, guards, soldiers, security, someone comes for you and executes you or puts you in jail. And I said, be ready for that to happen if you want to continue on this. Luckily, that little talk kind of convinced him, like, oh, yeah, I guess, I don't want to spoil it for my friends, so I'm going to stop being a murder hobo. But, always look out for this type of player. Someone that they're just very excited, I think, that they've found a game where they can do anything, anywhere, at any time. And sometimes it is exciting to go around and kill characters. Like, you've probably done it in some sort of video game. And the good thing about that is when you do that, you just reload your game and everybody's back to life and you can actually finish the story. The bad part about that is when you do it on a tabletop role-playing game, there is no save point. People don't come back to life. They are dead forever. The story stops after this character dies. And that's kind of maybe the connect that a lot of people aren't making sometimes when they first get into these. They realize the reason it was fun was because if I messed everything up too badly, I could always restore the game. You gotta let them know there's no reset button on a tabletop role-playing game. And I think usually they get it. If they don't, they might actually be a person you need to kick from the group. Because eventually even some of your other players are going to be like, yo, what? I just wanted to talk to that person. Why did you have to run up and stab them? Next comes one of the worst ones. I think this is the worst of the entire group. It's the dud. The dud is usually someone who wasn't meant to be there to begin with. Hold on, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. The reason I have this as number 5 is because the dud is, I'd say, I don't usually make these as an escalating scale, but number 5, this is the worst character. This is the worst person. The dud has been dragged there by their friends or come along with a friend because they think they might like it, or has been forced to be there, or has decided to tag along not understanding what exactly they're getting into, or they've come along and been unable to just stand up and say, this is not for me. Which, guys, if tabletop role-playing is not for you, speak up right away. You will save everybody, including the game master, a lot of pain and discomfort. The dud comes to the game and does nothing, or even worse, makes the game go slower because they're so distracted by not being part of the game. For example, they just keep looking at their phone. Maybe they bring a Nintendo Switch and are playing it during the game. They don't have any motivation to be there whatsoever. They're not interested in role-playing. They're not interested in the storyline. I don't know why they're there. They're the dud. And this really messes up a game in multiple ways. At least with the murder hobo, they're interacting with the characters you've put in front of them. Even if they're murdering them, they're listening to the story and to get even the descriptions of who you're encountering. Where the dud, everybody's made their turn. You've encountered a new town. The guards at the gate don't want to let you in. Everybody's said their piece about why they should be allowed in. And then you turn to the dud and say, and what does your character do? And they're like, huh? What? Sorry, where are we? I don't know. I just stand there next to the rest of them and let them talk. You're like, oh, okay. Great, thanks. Okay. So you stand next to your friends and let them talk, which they've already done. Where do we move on from here? Like, they've just kind of like put an entire obstacle in the game where it's like, okay, you just saw all your friends try all these different things that didn't work. You were the last hope for us to be able to figure out another way to get in. All of your friends are turning to look at you kind of like, side-eyeing you like, are you serious right now? We need your help right now getting past this one point, and you can't just give us like a new line of dialogue or interaction with the guards to get past this. um, Everybody's been injured in a fight, they're laying there bleeding out, dying. The dud is the cleric of the group, and everybody unresponsive because their hit points are either at zero or negative, turns to them and says, "Is there anything you can do to save our characters?" They don't even look at their character sheet and they just say, I don't know. And you're like, well, yeah, as the game master, you want to speak up and be like, well, I mean, you do have some spells that might help. Let me see here. Magic missile? You're going to throw magic missiles at your injured friends? I don't know. Goes back to looking at their phone. You're like, oh my god, like, do I have to say, like, use the healing, like, use the lay on of hands spell? Do I have to, like, literally point to their character sheet and say, look at this, you have a healing spell here, you have healing potions here, you have salves, herbs, potions, drinks, spells, scrolls, wands that could save all your friends' life, and you're here looking at your phone? Your friends are dying and you're looking at your phone. Could you help us out here? Why did you have to choose the cleric as your character, while all your friends were fighters who did all the work for you? This is the dud. The person who you're just like, oh my god, there's so much your character could do right now, and you don't even want to be here. Why are you here? Why are you part of the party? Usually if it gets this bad where it's just someone not interacting with anything and actually kind of even holding up turns because you're like, excuse me, what are you doing, what are you doing right now, like, what's your character? They're just, huh, huh, oh, hold on, let me finish this message real quick, hold on. I don't know. That kind of person, just let them know they can be excused. Just say, hey, so like, if you don't want to be here, it's okay. Just hang out until this game is over, and we'll get back to your friends, and we'll get back to you. But I think like maybe this really isn't for you. You're not really interested in this. It's fine. You don't got to get mad or anything like that. Hey, role playing games aren't for everybody. It's okay. But that kind of person should exit your game. There's just no point for them being there. They're gonna make the game awkward, stall out, and hold up player turns as you wait for them to put down their cell phone to actually answer a question. In general, I don't really like to have a lot of cell phones at the table to begin with unless they're using it to like look up rules, or they have a character sheet on there, or they have like a drawing of their character on there. If someone is like constantly looking at their phone while I'm trying to progress through a storyline, I'll just be like, okay guys, phones down, all right, can we please just focus? It's a new modern annoyance of game masters everywhere, and I'm sure at some point you will encounter it. If you do encounter the dud, just kind of give them a heads up at least, once or twice, and let them know, like, if you look, if you don't want to be here, if you're not really invested, I get it. Maybe this just isn't for you, and head on out. It's okay. No one's angry at you for not liking what I like. If someone invited me to a football game to watch and expects me to be extremely invested and rooting for a team and staring at the TV and jumping up and down and shouting, they just wouldn't get it out of me because I'm just not invested in football. Nothing wrong with people who love football. That's great. I'm glad they have things they love, but you're not going to find me not staring at my phone during a football game because I would just be bored out of my mind, right? There's something for everybody, and role-playing games are not for everybody. That's okay. If you encounter some of these players, like I said, don't be angry, don't come across with a disappointed voice, don't be harsh. Just take them aside and explain how what they're doing is holding up the game, slowing it down, or trying to bend the rules to their favor. And explain to them, you as the game master, how you would like it to go. If you're a friend who is a player in the same game and you see this person doing these kind of things and you understand, uh-oh, this may be really annoying for the game master, just take them aside and be like, hey, I'm super glad you came along. Maybe your excitement is heading in the wrong direction with you trying to murder every single character. I love that you're being interactive, but I think what you may need to be concerned with is that you may be killing off main characters and plot lines. The dungeon master is not trying to railroad you, but at the same time, they do need certain characters to give exposition as to why we're doing what we're doing. Or if you have that friend who comes along and isn't very involved, doesn't want to be there, just let them know, hey, it's okay. You didn't have to come along for this. I'm sorry it was super boring. Don't feel an obligation to have to be there if role-playing games are not for you. It's okay. Everybody has their own thing, to each their own, right? Right? That's how this world could be better if we just let everybody know to each their own. I hope I've explained each of those kind of players to you today and some ways to solve this situation, get through it. It's mostly just about taking the person aside and talking to them. I wouldn't suggest doing it in the middle of play, like stopping the whole game and be like, look, listen, right now, okay? Your behavior is horrible and I want you out, okay? Like, don't ever do something like that. There's not a reason for that. If it is reaching a point where it's like destroying your game, then maybe you might want to say, hey, can we hold on just for a second? Can I speak to you in the other room real quick? Because there has been times where I've had to actually do that, where I've had to be like, oh my god, like this actually might like turn into a fight at the table, especially with like murder hobo type situation where they just keep murdering every character the other characters want to interact with. That's the only time where I've actually had to take someone aside and be like, okay, look, they're starting to get a little bit pissed off. I'm not angry. I know you're just excited to interact with these characters, but I do want you to understand and respect some of the other characters here who want to actually talk to the characters instead of murder them. That's the only time where I've actually had to take some, but even then I remove them from the table for just a second to take them aside and explain like how your interactions right now are going against the interactions of everybody else in the table and kind of like putting a huge monkey wrench in the game. Again, I try not to stop people from doing anything they want to do in the game, but I do put a stop to it if it, number one, makes the game almost unplayable for the other characters, or number two, one of the most important, makes characters or players uncomfortable. And we'll talk about situations like that, safety words, triggers, things like that. I don't like to overlay a ton of like trigger warnings or safety things going on because most of the times I try to figure out who my players are before I start a game. But there are certain situations, and there have been certain situations, even in live shows, where people have done or said very uncomfortable things that made the whole table or the whole game kind of lose their train of thought. It became such a needle off the record situation. And we'll talk about those in a future video. I hope my talk today with you has helped you figure out ways to eliminate sort of the roadblocks some characters and players can create. If you've had a situation where a player made the game insanely uncomfortable or just put a complete stop to it or broke down the entire game entirely, or just, even just a small little obstacle in the road of what you were trying to plan for your players, let me know in the comments below. I love these stories. They are very interesting, and they will help other people listening, writing their own adventures, and preparing to be a game master themselves get through these impediments along the way. Till next time, I've been the Inksmith, and I will talk to you again real soon.